хорошо слышно. Здравствуйте.
Спасибо большое.
international legal platform for implementation of the human rights is being exercised. We would like to note when the final solution of any national acts are always taken into consideration, like human rights, rights, National Pact on the Civil and Political Rights, Convention, and others. Our page of our modern history is dedicated to the relations with the Venice Convention of the European Council. On observer status of the Venice Convention. Values of the rule of law and the human rights and democracy. And the framework extended Parliament and the Central Election Commission our countries, our organization, as our partner, the Commission plays a huge role in the development of constitutionalism in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has on various occasions came to the Commission as the consultative body for consultation bills of law. Expertise of state control and ombudsman's institute, election law, and others. And all these matters are supported face by face in our country. Dear participants of the forum, Kazakhstan is experiencing a huge transformation. The president of Kazakhstan mentioned the reforms of their strengthening of the state institution on March 16, 2022 that is aimed at building the trust of citizens and strengthening the guarantees of human rights. The initiative to establish the Constitutional Court of Kazakhstan. UNOG.
Je suis sur l'ordinateur avec lequel je procure les visios. I can hear somebody's voice. Can you hear me? Yes, usually. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, Glick Kanindar Menzalar. It is my great honor and distinct privilege to address you today from the United Nations Office of Geneva, the operational hub of the United Nations system. I wish to thank the organizers of the conference for holding this in-depth discussion on the rule of law at a critical time. Allow me to avail myself of this opportunity to extend my congratulations to the government and people of Kazakhstan on your recent milestone anniversaries. 30 years of independence, 30 years in the United Nations, 10 years in the Association of People Members. Can I ask somebody to mute their microphone? I hear French language over my conversation. Thank you. Over the last 30-some years, Kazakhstan has established itself as a respected member of the international community and a constructive contributor on key issues of the global agenda. Among them, global nuclear disarmament and the maintenance of the non-proliferation regime, efforts to resolve regional conflicts, peaceful coexistence of peoples of different cultures and religions, the proactive climate policy with the key objective of achieving carbon neutrality by 2060, and I could go on. It is altogether fitting and highly appropriate that a major discussion on the establishment of the rule of law should be conceived and taking place in Kazakhstan. Comprehensive program with all-encompassing reforms laid out by President Kasovich is deeply considered, compelling, and at the same time rousing. The patriotic state of the nation address last March is nothing short of a root and branch remake of the legal core of the country and a strong impetus toward the triumph of the rule of law for all institutions from the top down. This is the bedrock in modern, just, democratic, fighting societies that put the interests of the people and of the nation above all else. It is also fundamental. Human rights and sustainable development. The United Nations, together with regional and national partners, has been engaging in efforts to strengthen the rule of law globally and nationally for decades. Since 2012, the global focal point of the rule of law has been striving to strengthen coordination and greater effectiveness among UN entities in this area. Despite considerable progress and advancements across the world, we continue to encounter severe setbacks for the rule of law. This ranges from politicization of justice institutions and threats to their independence, attacks on national human rights mechanisms and the shrinking of civic space inside countries, to the blatant disregard by some for the sanctity of international law, of intergovernmental agreements, and international borders. The rule of law and sustainable development are strongly intertwined. Goal 16 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is an enabling goal for member states to generate policy changes that advance progress on other SDGs. In particular, our recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic presents a challenge, but also an opportunity to achieve the promise of peaceful, just, and inclusive societies, grounded in the rule of law and human rights through the realization of Goal 16. The pandemic has further exposed deep structural inequalities, which have disproportionately impacted the lives and futures of young people, women, minorities, persons with disabilities, and the most disadvantaged. These challenges have further eroded public trust, especially among young people. Addressing these challenges remains a priority. In this context, a few months ago, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres presented to the General Assembly his vision on the future of global cooperation and effective multilateralism, entitled Our Common Agenda, a call for action to address multiple interlinked global challenges. Our common agenda recognizes that the rule of law and human rights are central to our greatest challenges and essential to resolving them. Putting people at the center of governance and justice, building trust through stronger, responsive, and transparent institutions, eliminating corruption and its causes, addressing drivers of inequality. These are the key elements of a renewed social contract. The rule of law needs to be strengthened and protected as a fundamental pillar for stability, democracy, and human rights. At the international level, our common agenda underscores the importance of international solidarity, the unique role of intergovernmental bodies, and our multilateral system to address peace and security issues and to settle disputes. The promotion of international legal frameworks, norms, and standards is therefore essential to contributing to a more networked, effective, and inclusive multilateralism. This takes on special meaning in the current situation where multilateralism is not only disregarded, but tossed to the side, despite being the best tool available for all. The Secretary General is in the process of engaging member states and relevant stakeholders to advance the rule of law agenda that would be fit for the everyday needs of people and effective with future crises and challenges. A committed ally and partner in initiatives at the international, regional, and national levels to promote good governance, transparency, and accountability of state institutions, Kazakhstan leads by example in addressing challenges related to the rule of law. This brings me back to the vast package of political and socioeconomic reforms initiated by President Tokayev. It contains a number of critically important initiatives aimed at strengthening democratic institutions, reforming the electoral system in the country, and promoting the rule of law. Let us wish success to the government of Kazakhstan in strengthening the rule of law to achieve peace and justice for its people, and building confidence in the state and its institutions, and contributing to effective multilateralism. The United Nations Office at Geneva stands ready to support and continue to engage in our cooperation in advancing the United Nations agenda in all these areas. Thank you very much. Nazarlinlarınıza rahmet.
Спасибо большое. Thank you so much, Mr. Chikwaidze. Dear colleagues, I have to announce who is present here in this audience, who is present online, on Zoom. Of course, I cannot list all the participants, but I'd like to say that in our audience from the Constitutional Council, we have Askar Dolbaev, member of Constitutional Council. There should have been a chair of the Constitutional Council, but today there are some big meetings in Nur-Sultan. We also have some government officials from the Akimat of Almaty, the mayor's office, the head of Almaty Representative Office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Shekilbayev, Ralskhan, head of the Kazakhstan Agency on Fighting Corruption in Almaty, Murat, First Deputy for the Agency to Fight Corruption, head of the Political Cooperation of UN in Almaty, Ms. Almash Ardenova, Kanat Salimbayev, head of the Prevention Department of the Kazakhstan Agency to Fight Corruption. So you see that anti-corruption is quite well represented. So that was mentioned by the previous speaker. From UN, the host of this platform, Vesemil Samek, representative of the UN Global Communications, Hans-Friedrich Schödler, UNHCR representative for Central Asia, Irina Bilyalova, head of UNHCR, Kazakhstan National Office. I'm glad to see her. Gabriela Ioannescu, UNAIDS Director of Central Asia. Rustam Kapshikbayev, UNAIDS Coordinator for Global Partnership. Dina Hasenova, RCO Partnership and Development Finance Officer for the Permanent UN Representative. Simona Ferdo, RCO Associate Coordination Officer. As you see, UN is heavily represented. I'm not mentioning everyone because I will give the floor to them. Satybayev Yerzhan should be present, who is head of the World Economy and Policy Institute under the Nazarbayev Foundation. There are also some universities, the rector of Abay University, Mr. Bilalov, and of course director of this institute, Sorbonne, Kazakhstan, under Abay University, the coordinator of today's event, Ainurova Sabitova Ainura, the rector of Al-Farabi University had to leave to Nur-Sultan urgently, so we have here heads of departments and other well-known scientists. Diplomatic representatives in Kazakhstan, Xavier Yelon Turenbelek, the attaché for cooperation for education of France Embassy in Kazakhstan. Nesrike Kalalinova, the University Cooperation Officer. In Zoom online we have the entire Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan. There are also government officials, the President, Administration, Yerzhan Zhelbayev, Deputy Head of the Administration, Minister of Justice, and Mr. Musin is going to speak. Head of Kazakhstan Agency of Financial Monitoring. I am mentioning only the directors because the other employees are also present, also Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prosecutor General, Mr. Chendeleev, the Supreme Court judges, justices, President Administration, the Secretary of the Constitutional Legislation of Senate, a well-known lawyer, the member of the International Relations Committee. There are a lot of MPs. I've mentioned already UN, the Venice Commission of the EU Council with its President, Mr. Claire Bazi-Mallory. Also, we have here the UN, the EU Council, the help coordinator, Ms. Hakhlova, that we cooperate with, both the Constitutional Council and the Commission on the Human Rights. And of course there are representatives from the France part, because we cooperate with French colleagues long ago, and the main representative here is the Sorbonne Kazakhstan Institute, and we are extremely thankful for the work that they do. Christine Boutillier, the co-director of Sorbonne Kazakhstan, Vivienne Fouquet, the executive director of Alliance de France in Almaty. So the entire Constitutional Council, Republican Collegium of Lawyers, the Universities of Almaty, and Nur-Sultan. So we have here Republican Bar Association. Sometimes colleagues ask me why have you selected the platform for this conference, the Jubilee Conference in Almaty? First of all, that's where the independence was declared, and the first events of Kazakhstan becoming a member of United Nations has happened here, because Almaty was the capital, and honestly, for those who are present here, just look outside. How could we miss such wonderful weather to celebrate this joyful event? It was planned that the Akim of Almaty would deliver his welcoming speech, Yerbulat Dosaev, but today it's a day of some serious events that are hosted in Nur-Sultan. He had to leave there, and he is represented here by his deputy, Mr. Amrin Askar, well-known lawyer. We are colleagues. We used to work in the Ministry of Justice. So thank you for giving me the floor. It's an important event for our city. So let me read the welcoming address of the Mayor of Almaty, Mr. Yerbulat Dosaev, to the participants of the conference. Dear participants, I'm happy to welcome you in the largest city of Kazakhstan, the beautiful city of Almaty. When Kazakhstan has declared its independence, the system of law was established, and the first constitution and the laws that has shaped the political and economical development of our country for the decades to come. Kazakhstan, for 30 years in a row, is enjoying UN support and its institutions. That is our reliable partner to implement the prospective agenda in reaching Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Almaty is the multilateral international cooperation center which hosts 18 UN agencies which have regional and sub-regional status. That is why Almaty was selected by UN to have temporal shelter for some Afghani UN agencies and employees. So we're providing for their comfortable living here in Almaty. Our president, Mr. Tokayev, has initiated some reforms to build a new Kazakhstan with a new constitutional balance between the institutes of power and focusing on expanding the participation of people in shaping political culture. The complex changes are to increase the rule of law as one of the pillars to propel Kazakhstan further as a modern, efficient state which is based on the rule of law as the foundation of its existence. To provide for the interest of the state while respecting the rights and freedoms of each citizen is the strategic way for the development of our country. And keeping this balance is dependent on the government as well as on the lawyers and the scholars of law and foreign experts who today participate in today's conference. I am confident that this discussion will be extremely useful for the rule of law, which was very important for the human being, its rights and freedoms. The Mayor of Almaty, the Akim of Almaty, Mr. Yerbulat Dosaev, that was his welcoming address. So please convey our best wishes to the Akim, to your team, and success to work in our beloved southern capital. For me, I have two cities that I love, Nur-Sultan and of course Almaty. There are other beautiful cities, but let me stop on that. So all the best to you and thank you. Dear colleagues, thanks to this conference, the spectrum of our business acquaintance is expanding. The UN structures until recently would associate with Vlastimir Samek, who is here in Almaty, head of the UN rep office, and now, thanks to the conference, we now know Ms. Mikhaila Friedberg-Story, who is United Nations Resident Coordinator for Kazakhstan. We are grateful to you for the support that you provide to all our structures, and both the public and the state, because you agreed to participate in this conference and to be a speaker and a moderator and an organizer. So we will be happy to listen to you, Mr. Mikhaila Friedberg-Story. The floor is yours.
Distinguished Mr. Mamin, Mr. Rogov, Minister Musin, First Deputy Foreign Minister Matulin, representatives from the Akimat of Almaty, Your Excellencies, and of course, Your Excellency Mr. Shikvadaze, as well as Madame Bazu Molleri. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to the UN building in Almaty as the resident coordinator for the Republic of Kazakhstan. Being the resident coordinator for the Republic of Kazakhstan means that I represent the Secretary General as it relates to the UN development system. And it is a true honor to work in the strong partnership we have with the people and the government of Kazakhstan, as well as all of the international partners we have here. I am very pleased to welcome you to this building, which we have, as you can see, is a fantastic, wonderful location where we're hosted by the government. But I would like to also welcome you to our premises in the capital, Nur-Sultan, an equally beautiful city, if I may say so. It just indicates the strength of Kazakhstan. But moving on to the very important topic of today's conference, the constitutional and international aspects of upholding the rule of law. This comes as at a very timely day. We know and we see that internationally, globally, and nationally, the importance of rule of law remains central. It starts with the constitutions and it builds upwards, inwards, and outwards. In 1945, the United Nations was founded on 3 pillars: peace and security, human rights, and development. Today, in the complexities we see of our world related to the political, social, economic, and environmental challenges, the UN is more relevant than ever, and the Charter of the United Nations continues to lay the unbreachable foundation for our multilateralism. For the United Nations, the rule of law is a principle of governance in which all stakeholders, public and private, are accountable to laws that are publicly promulgated, equally enforced, independently adjudicated, and in line with international human rights norms and standards. It is, as we heard from His Excellency the Minister, in the Charter, and it will continue to remain reflected. Such a foundation is crucial for international peace and security, as well as political stability and achieving sustainable and inclusive economic development. The rule of law and development are strongly interlinked with each other. Strengthening the rule of law enables us to transform our world by achieving sustainable development goals defined in our 2030 agenda. This agenda is indeed adopted, of course, also by Kazakhstan. And as we know, goal number 16 focuses specifically on the promotion and respect for rule of law at national and international level and ensures equal access to justice for all. Establishing inclusive and accountable justice system and conducting the rule of law reforms will build trust in the government's legitimacy among the population. We know this. It is relevant globally. It is relevant in Kazakhstan. And this is a critical prerequisite to empowering all people, including the most vulnerable, to participate in a country's social, political, and economic transformation. We have all heard and appreciated President Tokayev's outlines of the comprehensive reform agenda as he has set forward. We know and we see that rule of law is at the core of this, and that is why this conference is so important, and rest assured that the United Nations remains a firm partner to Kazakhstan to support this process further. As we've heard, this year celebrates the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's membership to the United Nations, and our partnership has shifted over the years. As we know, when we first started, there were only a few UN entities in the country focusing on providing humanitarian assistance. Today, we are over 27 UN agencies working with Kazakhstan through our cooperation framework. This cooperation framework is guided by the Sustainable Development Goals, and they underpin the national development plans, both as it relates to many of the political reforms and the social reforms, as well as the economic reforms. Finally, let me highlight the urgent need that we recognize, and in that light, the urgent need that we hear that the President recognizes when it comes to foster a new reform to achieve sustainable and inclusive economic development. In this light, I would like to also highlight the importance of rule of law and human rights. We welcome the processes that are taking place to ensure that human rights and rule of law are respected in the follow-up, not least to the January events, and we remain a firm partner to Kazakhstan and extend our support as needed. We look forward to staying firm in our commitment and work together in the future to achieve the development aspirations of Kazakhstan and advancing the 2030 agenda. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the co-organizers of today's event, and I'm looking forward to the discussions. I think this is the beginning of a long process that I hope we will remain as an open dialogue. Rachvet, spasiba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Friberg's story. I'd like to tell you that Kazakhstan has always been adherent to the principles of the UN, and on behalf of the UN, we have always been highly respected, and I think our further speakers will speak that Kazakhstan was the permanent observer of the Security Council, as well as it is the member of the Committee on Human Rights of the UN. I think our next speakers will speak about that more in details. We are celebrating 2 anniversaries at the same time, and the 2nd anniversary is closer to my heart because I work more frequently with the Venice Commission of the European Council, and it's a great privilege for me to give the floor to the President of the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe, Ms. Claire Bazzi-Mallory. She was recently appointed in December last year, and I think from the beginning of the foundation of this structure was Janine Bukikyo, and in December all of us voted for Ms. Claire Bazzi-Mallory for the President and for many of us. This occasion took place online, and still we communicate in the same way, and we really hope that we will be able to congratulate her in person with this important appointment. And now, Ms. Claire Basny-Mallory, the floor is yours, please.
And it's a great, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to open this major event on behalf of the Venice Commission. As you know, the Venice Commission is also known as the European Commission for Democracy Through Law. It has, since its creation in 1991, nurtured and promoted the rule of law as one of the fundamental principles of the pluralist democracies. In 2012, the Republic of Kazakhstan joined the Venice Commission and became a member of a family that counts today 61 member states, stretched on 3 continents. A lot has been achieved for the last 10 years. The Venice Commission has supported, upon demand from the Kazakh authorities, the constitutional and legal reform process in the country. VC, as we say, has adopted quite numerous opinions from the beginning on draft laws regarding, for instance, the judicial system, the status of judges, the Commissioner for Human Rights, the Administrative Procedure and Justice Code, and the Code of the Judicial Ethics. The Venice Commission also supported the improvement of the legal framework of the Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan and the reform of the High Judicial Council in the country. I would like here to praise the excellent level of cooperation between the Venice Commission and the Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan in the establishment of a new constitutional framework and promotion of the legal culture in line with the standards of the pluralist democracies across the world. This event today, which aims to explore the international and constitutional aspects of the upholding of the rule of law, takes place in the process to explore further progress when your president declared as a main priority the political modernization and emphasized the role of a mutual responsibility and trust in society. This modernization entails further constitutional, legislative, administrative, and judicial reforms aimed at bringing Kazakhstan closer to the international standards and respecting at the same time the national traditions and specificity of Kazakhstan. I always insist on this last point, and I'll quote one of the last sentences of our opinion in 2017 on the constitutional amendments. Progress towards such an objective can only be assessed over time when practical experience has revealed the most appropriate approach, taking into account historical development and traditions, societal development, the society's attitude towards the process around, as well as international developments. Ladies and gentlemen, as you probably know, in order to offer the possibility to assess the level of rule of law in a given state, the Venice Commission drafted an operational tool called the Rule of Law Checklist. This document, adopted in 2016 at the Council of Europe level, contains 5 core elements of the rule of law, as follows. First of all, legality, of course. The powers of the public authorities are to be defined by law. Second, legal certainty. Legal certainty involves the accessibility of the law. The law must be certain, foreseeable, and easy to understand. Basic principles such no punishment without law, or the non-retroactivity of the criminal law are bulwarks of the legal certainty. Second, equality before the law and non-discrimination. Equality before the law is probably the principle that most embodies the concept of rule of law. It is paramount that the law guarantees the absence of any discrimination on grounds such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political opinions, national or social origin, birth, etc. Anyhow, positive measures could be allowed as long as they are proportionate and necessary. Third, prevention of abuse or misuse of powers. Preventing the abuses of powers means having in the legal system safeguards against arbitrariness, providing that the discretionary power of the officials are not unlimited and are regulated by law. 4. Access to justice. It implies the presence and independent and impartial judiciary and the right to have a fair trial. Because if the gate for remedies, as the Commissioner for Human Rights, but above all, justice, even constitutional justice, have to be open to all citizens, the independence and the impartiality of the judiciary are central to the public perception of the justice, and thus to the achievement of the classical formula, justice must not only be done, it must also be seen to be done. The above-mentioned principles are not to be applied mechanically. The compliance with the rule of law is a complex process. The first addressees of the rule of law checklist are the states themselves, but it may be used by international organizations, non-governmental organizations, scholars, and the citizens in general. And I'll insist, the participation of the citizens in the strengthening of the rule of law is of paramount importance to create an enabling environment where people feel collectively responsible for the implementation of the rule of law. On this way that Kazakhstan has chosen to go, the Venice Commission stands ready to continue to provide its support as regards further reforms to the benefits of all citizens of Kazakhstan. Thank you for your attention. Спасибо вам большое за внимание.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Bazzi-Malary.
Thank you very much, Ms. Claire Bazzi-Malary. Merci beaucoup. Kazakh legal experts experience a particular sense of acknowledgement and respect to the French colleagues. Ms. Claire Bazzi-Malary, before being elected as the chairperson of the Venice Commission and as a member of the Venice Commission at the same time. She was also the member of the Constitutional Council of France. And we used to have very, I would call it friend-friendly relations with France. And I think instead of the Constitutional Court in Kazakhstan, there will be the Constitutional Council, there will be the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Kazakhstan. And I think this change will not affect the friendship between Kazakhstan and France, as well as the cooperation with French legal experts and experience sharing in this respect will still be continued. That's why I'd like to thank you again, Ms. Claire Bazzi-Malary. Like I mentioned before, and I will speak about that later on, I will further speak up more about this topic. The anniversaries that we are celebrating today are highlighted by the rule of the legal component. I wouldn't say that legal experts are the protagonists of the state formation and the process of adherence to the convention, as well as in the process of becoming member of the Venice Commission, but their rule is extremely important. That's why it's quite natural that the welcome address wanted to be expressed by the Minister of Justice of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Akana Musin. Kanat Sergeyevich, please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, distinguished Igor Ivanovich, distinguished participants of the conference, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The 30th anniversary of the accession of the Republic of Kazakhstan to the UN and 10th anniversary of our country's accession to the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe is a good reason to discuss the issues of constitutional amendments in the process of democratization of our state, the role in ensuring the rule of law. The Republic of Kazakhstan, in the course of its independence through institutional and political reforms of the judicial system, state administration, administrative law, has taken measures to strengthen the rule of law in our country. In this respect, it should be particularly noted that in March of this year, in his address of the head of the state presented a large-scale and holistic package of the political reforms that will establish a fundamentally new constitutional balance between the institutions and power. Thus, this document provides the following directions: revision of powers of the president and introduction of additional restrictions, revision of the procedure of forming the deputy corps of the parliament, the competence of the parliament and its chambers to adopt laws, and other issues. Defining the constitutional status of the human rights ombudsman, prosecutors' offices, and the newly created audit chamber, Supreme Audit Chamber, to regulate the status and powers of the newly created Constitutional Court. Like Igor Ivanovich already mentioned, the importance of this legal act is extremely and highly important for further development of our country, and we are quite confident that the adoption of these amendments will further improve the goal-oriented activities of democratization of the country and improvement of human rights in the Republic of Kazakhstan. The adoption of amendments to the constitution of the above issue is scheduled by the end of the year. And also, Kazakhstan made the amendments to the Constitutional Court for the dissolution of the death penalty. And now it is fixed in the Constitution, and the amendments will be adopted by the end of June of this year. All this will make it possible to strengthen the rule of law in our state and will enable further steps to strengthen the principles of justice. I hope this conference will also discuss other steps in strengthening the rule of law in our state. I'd like to wish all participants of this conference fruitful work and good, positive environment during this forum. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Musin, for your time, for attending this conference, as well as for your warm wishes. And I hope all the participants will associate themselves with them. And I'd like to wish everyone and you personally very fruitful endeavors in exercising these reforms that were recently mentioned in the address of the President. Since the first day of our independence, the Republic of Kazakhstan chose the way towards European values, towards European standards and other missions of the European work. And I hope this trend will be strengthened and intensified in light of the latest changes to our political and social frameworks. In this respect, we are really grateful that we have the ambassador of European Council to the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Kestutis Yankauskas, that very generously agreed to attend this event. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Спасибо большое, Mr. Chairman, distinguished ministers, deputy ministers, Madam President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We are only supposed to say the welcome words, so let me be very brief. We all mentioned the 30 years of Kazakhstan's independence, of relations between Kazakhstan and United Nations. Next year will mark also 30 years Kazakhstan EU, and of course the 10 years of Kazakhstan and the Venice Commission. It's all important. This conference is very timely because this rules-based world order has been challenged today, and we all need to work together to cooperate to restore that. And the work on international level starts at home. It starts nationally. The regional cooperation is very important in order for us to reach the global decisions. Now, on top, on the header of today's conference, you see the two blue flags, two dark blue flags of the European Union and of the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe. And you see the banner of Central Asia Rule of Law Program 2023 and the Kazakh flag. And let me express my wish that the expert discussion today will mean that there will be more rule of law and very quality rule of law cooperation and implementation. And these shades of blue and yellow that are in our flags will signify the quality work in the rule of law, which is one of the basic values that unite all of us, as well as democracy, human rights, market economy, transparency, and so on. So let me assure you the continuous and long-standing interest from the European Union to work together with Kazakhstan and all our international partners towards that noble goal. Let me wish all of you today very fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, and I hope that cooperation with European structures and entities of Kazakh state bodies, Kazakh public associations will continue and will gain momentum given the latest changes in our political and legal life. I've been talking a lot about the importance of French experts, French legal school in the life of our country. That's why I would like to, without any further ado, to give a floor to the General Counsel of the French Republic in Almaty, to Mr. Alexis Shahtanstinsky. Please, the floor is yours.
Consul.
Merci beaucoup et bonjour à tous. Donc, уважаемые.
Dear Igor Ivanovich, dear Karat Abdrazakovich, dear Minister of Justice, dear Ms. Mikhaila Friberg-Story, dear representatives of Akimat, Mr. Deputy Akim, representatives of UN and OSCE, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Diplomatic Corps, and Corps, and the Venice Commission, dear participants and organizers of the conference, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, Allow me, on behalf of the French Republic, to welcome you all to today's conference, the theme of which is constitutional and international aspects of the establishment of the rule of law. As you all know, this year marks the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's accession as an independent state to the UN, and then almost simultaneously to the OSCE, and the 10th anniversary of Kazakhstan's accession to the Venice Commission under the Council of Europe. Over the years of independence, Kazakhstan has significantly strengthened its diplomatic relations with the countries of the European Union, including France, with which bilateral relations were established back in 1992, on the 25th of January. France and Kazakhstan, recognizing the universal principles of freedom and democracy, have cooperated in the areas of protection and promotion of human rights that, particularly within the international organizations. Since the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Paris on the 10th of December 1948, France has worked tirelessly to defend the universality and primacy of human rights. The struggle for respect for these rights is a fundamental principle of the French Republic and lies at the heart of its foreign policy. France's priority is to rebuild the legal space for the protection of human rights. Respect for and recognition of the rights and freedoms of man and citizen constitute in turn the basis for the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Constitution of any country is the basic law and determines the vector of development of certain branches of law and the legal system of the country in general. Here I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that while drafting the Constitution, which was adopted in 1995, the Expert and Advisory Council included, in addition to Kazakh experts and one expert from Russia, there were two French experts, who were Mr. Jacques Attali, advisor to the French Council of State, also close advisor of President Mitterrand, as well as Mr. Alain Dumas, former French Minister of Foreign Affairs, and at that time, chairman of the French Constitutional Council. The Constitution established a model of presidency similar to that of the Fifth French Republic, where the president of the state was given the most important powers. Thus, we can say that our two countries are quite similar, and it's not coincidental. The other indicator of the influence of French legal system was the creation of the Constitutional Council, a state body that ensured the supremacy of Kazakhstan Constitution. Finally, I'd like to mention the role of the European Commission for Democracy through Law, also known as the Venice Commission. It consists of independent legal experts of a high level, and every time it expands its activities, ensuring a constant exchange of ideas in the legal field. And I am proud, representing French external policy, Claire Bazzi-Mallery, my compatriot, is the chair of that Venice Commission. As it is known, the Venice Commission is guided by three basic principles of European constitutional heritage that underpin the Council of Europe, namely democracy, protection of human rights, and the rule of law. In this regard, France paid special attention to the initiative of the current President of Kazakhstan, Mr. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, to promote democracy and the rule of law, and is certainly ready to support Kazakhstan in this area. Prior to finishing my speech, I'd like to thank both Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan, the Human Rights Commission under the President of Kazakhstan, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the UN Resident Coordinator Office in Kazakhstan, the Venice Commission, Nursultan Nazarbayev Foundation, and Sorbonne Kazakhstan Institute and Abay University, which is the first of Kazakh universities to give priority in strengthening educational links between Kazakhstan and France. Special word of thanks goes to Mr. Aynur Sabitova, co-director of Institute Sorbonne Kazakhstan, for organizing today's conference, for her extremely valuable input. I'm sure that today's conference will be useful for achieving our common goals. I thank you for your attention, and I wish to all productive discussion. Thank you so much, dear Mr. Alexis Shakhtinsky. As you recalled, the participants of that task force that was drafting our acting constitution of 1995, and most importantly, you rightly mentioned those coinciding legal institutes of our countries. And taking this opportunity, I'd like to offer to Ms. Sabitova, why don't we have a separate conference on the inter-influence of the French and Kazakh schools of law? Because the French say that the appetite comes while eating. So let's, for now, I'd like to thank everyone who gave their welcome address. And honestly, any conference has a welcoming address, and then it's purely scientific gist. But today's welcoming address, they were both scientific, academic, and politically quite important, and legally interesting. So we can say that the conference is not starting, but it's continuing its work. And I'd like to give the moderator right, as well known to you, Ms. Mikhaila Freiberg-Story, who will be chairing our work as a moderator. So the floor is yours.
Mr. Rogov. So, colleagues, as we heard, I'm delighted to hear about the bilateral dialogue between France and Kazakhstan. That is, I take that as a clear indication that it is all these bilateral dialogues that also lead to the very strong multilateral engagement that Kazakhstan has. Because we know that over the past 30 years, the Kazakhstan's multilateral policies have been so successful in developing Kazakhstan and also contributing to the international peace, security and development. And therefore, on that note, I am delighted to hand over and hear from First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Akana Kasovich Matulin, who is with us here online. Without further ado, please, Deputy Minister, allow me to hand over to you.
Mikhaila, dear President, уважаемые коллеги,
Dear colleagues, dear friends, I welcome you all, and I'd like to thank Mr. Rogov for inviting me to participate in today's conference. Let me continue in English, representing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and since this is an international conference.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure and honor to address the high-level conference dedicated to the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's membership to the United Nations and 10th anniversary of Kazakhstan's accession to the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe. Kazakhstan places the rule of law at the top of its priorities. From 2019 onwards, President Tokayev has initiated 4 packages of political and socio-economic reforms aimed at further developing of our society and increase its inclusiveness. In 2020, the President signed laws on peaceful assemblies and trade unions. We have taken a major step in our political development by ratifying the optional protocol on the abolishment of the death penalty without any reservations. President Tokayev's reforms culminated in his State of the Nation address, where a number of unprecedented political reforms was announced. I believe there is no need to enumerate all of them, as I'm sure you are well aware of them in general, but I would like just to focus on two main aspects of his address. The first one is the address is the starting point of a large-scale transformation of the country and the building of a new Kazakhstan. This is a historic milestone as reforms are designed to inspire society and call on everyone to take part in building a new nation. This course assumes unity and consolidation of the society and aimed to ensure systemic reforms that will improve overall living standards in our country and ensure long-term development and prosperity of its nation. And second, there are long-scale and large-scale and meaningful reforms which cover almost all areas of our life. They include initiatives aimed at further political liberalization, plurality, and openness. In the sphere of the economy, the reforms are focused on tackling monopolization, improving living standards, and ensuring that all citizens feel the benefits of our growing economy. Societal reforms are aimed at improving health and education of the nation, as well as other sectors. Let me stress that several key groups contributed to the creation of these reforms and contributed to the preparing to the State of the Nation address. And these groups include representatives of political parties, civil society and NGOs, the expert community, members of the National Council of Public Trust, lawyers and individual civil activists. President Tokayev has initiated reforms not for the cosmetic changes, but for the effective strategic development of the whole country. This is not a situational decision. It is a logical continuation of the President's previous reforms. They form part of the overall trend, a long-term course towards all-around modernization of the country. And January event will also not be starting point to reform this society, but the reform ideas were considered well in advance, and it just formed in this shape as it was delivered by our President in March 16th. Distinguished participants, from the very first day of our independence, Kazakhstan has been guided by the ideals and principles of the United Nations Charter, supported by the UN in adhering to the principles of peaceful dialogue and maintaining fair international order so that no one is left behind. Kazakhstan has ratified 8 core international human rights instruments and their 6 optional protocols, thus recognizing the competence of 4 treaty bodies to accept individual petitions from citizens concerning violations of their rights. Kazakhstan engages with all UN member states through the Universal Periodic Review. The country accepted 214 out of the 245 recommendations at the 2019 Universal Periodic Review cycle. Our country has extended a standing invitation to the special procedures of the United Nations, particularly human rights bodies. Last year, the Republic of Kazakhstan was elected to the Human Rights Council for the period 2022-2024, which became another sign of recognition of Kazakhstan as a responsible and mature member of the international community. Our Human Rights Council priorities during our term encompasses gender equality, women empowerment, universal abolition of the death penalty, freedom of religion and belief, fight against all forms of intolerance, promotion of inclusive and comprehensive education. Being fully committed to the United Nations mechanisms, we are working with the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights and Special Rapporteurs. And we are grateful to the High Commissioner personally and to her team for their dedication to render us expert and technical assistance in furthering our ambitious political reforms. Ladies and gentlemen, the development of partnership relations with the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe is another important decision of Kazakhstan foreign policy. The Venice Commission provided regular expertise to the legislative process in Kazakhstan and issued conclusions on constitutional amendments, reforms of the justice system, and administrative procedures. In 2018, the Venice Commission adopted the conclusion emphasizing the achievements of Kazakhstan in constitutional changes and in the process of democratization of the state, increasing the role of parliament, the transfer of some functions to the president, to the government, from the parliament to the government, the strengthening of the mechanisms of its accountability and control over the parliament are positive changes that correspond to the logic of the constitutional reforms carried out. Awarding in 2020 of the former chairman of the Venice Commission, Gianni Bukikyo, was with the Dostik order in Kazakh, means friendship of the first degree, was a symbol of our high appreciation of the Commission's effort in supporting democratic development in Kazakhstan. A key task in the framework of our cooperation with the Council of Europe is Kazakhstan's accession to a number of European conventions, including conventions in the field of criminal justice. In 2020, Kazakhstan submitted official application for participation in the Convention on Criminal Liability for Corruption. We work hard to develop measures to improve the effectiveness of anti-corruption, money laundering, and asset recovery system in the country. This direction is of particular importance in the context of the process of accession of Kazakhstan in 2020, the group of states in combating corruption, Greco group. Dear friends, in conclusion, I would like to express our deep satisfaction of the dialogue and partnership with our colleagues at the United Nations and the Venice Commission. We look forward to further strengthen our mutually beneficial cooperation in all areas of our national development. And as we are at the milestone of our cooperation, I would like to take this opportunity to thank, on behalf of the government, the United Nations as a whole, and its country team, headed by resident coordinator Michaela Friedberg-Story, and Venice Commission of the Council of Europe for their dedication and tireless efforts in further developing of my country. And let me assure that Kazakhstan is determined to further strengthen our engagement with all our partners in promoting rule of law and advancing sustainable development in the country and in the region. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the statement, First Deputy Minister. It really sets out a good overview for us to take forward as we continue this important dialogue here today. But it does give us that comprehensive basis to see what we can build on, because Kazakhstan has such a deep-rooted engagement in these tools, in the multilateral engagement, that all the prerequisites are there to bring further the rule of law in this international context as we look at this conference. With that, allow me then to turn to yourself, Mr. Rogov, Chairman of the Commission on Human Rights under the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, member of the Venice Commission on behalf of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and member of the Academic Council on the IFIC Academy of Law, and not least Deputy Executive Director of Nursultan Nazarbayev Foundation. The word is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Уважаемые коллеги,
distinguished colleagues, Mr. Matulin isn't my challenge, isn't my task to speak, because he has told a lot about cooperation of Kazakhstan and the Venice Commission, and I would also like to add some things. I planned initially not to talk the universally known things like what the Venice Commission is, what it is dealing with, and the way it was founded, because at least in here, in this audience, and both online and offline, there are legal experts with us who perfectly know what this commission is, and they are aware of its undertakings. But as I was just recently informed, a huge number of listeners, and most of them students, are watching the broadcast on YouTube now, and they don't really know what this convention is and wanted to know more information about it. So I would like to start with some historical background, and then I would add what the first vice minister of the foreign affairs mentioned. Okay. The European Commission for Democracy through Law of the Council of Europe, better known by the name of the city where it meets as the Venice Commission, hereinafter. The Venice Convention was established shortly after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1990, based on a partial agreement by the 18 member states of the Council of Europe. In February 2002, the Council of Europe adopted an extended agreement concerning the Commission, allowing for non-European states to join it as well. The Commission has played a key role in adopting of constitutions by Eastern European countries that meet the standards of European constitutional doctrine. Originally formed as an instrument of urgent construction constitution in the context of democratic changes, the Venice Commission has gradually become an internationally recognized authoritative forum for the exchange of ideas in the legal field. First and foremost, it is in the constitutional upholding. In accordance with the statute, the Venice Commission is an independent advisory body that examines the legal systems of the participating states, particularly with a view of bringing these systems closer together and putting into practice the principles of the rule of law and democracy. The Commission promotes the European constitutional heritage. It plays a role in following the three principles of European constitutionalism that underpin the Council of Europe. These are the democracy, the protection of human rights, and rule of law. These three principles are put into practice in the following areas of activity: democratic institutions of human rights, elections, referenda, and political parties, constitutional review, and justice. The Venice Commission is composed of 62 countries, according to the data available, including all member states of the Council of Europe. Belarus takes part in its work as an associate member. Argentina, the Holy See, Japan, and Uruguay have observer status in the Venice Commission. The European Union, the Palestinian National Authority, and South Africa have a special status of partner for cooperation. The Commission primarily provides advice and provides urgent, yes, indeed, urgent assistance, particularly when it is painfully required in the field of constitutional law, in particular in the drafting of constitutions and constitutional reforms, and to this end analyzes documents of a constitutional nature. The Commission's method of work in providing legal assistance is to give legal opinions on draft of laws and laws enacted. However, in the case of states that are not members of the Council of Europe, this is done only at the request of the state concerned. Kazakhstan has, on various occasions, addressed to the Venice Commission. I will talk about that later on. And when you hear from some opponents like it is so-called interference in our domestic affairs. No, it does not interfere with the domestic affairs, because all the opinions are given at the request and on demand on a particular state, including Kazakhstan. So today we are celebrating 10th anniversary of the official membership of Venice Commission, but it had the status of observer since 1998. And then, 14 years later, it became its full member. On March 2002, the first president of the Republic of Kazakhstan signed the decree on the membership of Kazakhstan to the European Commission on Democracy through Law. And we assume that the meeting of the relevant application of the Republic of Kazakhstan is the evidence of acknowledgement that Kazakhstan has reached a status in the rule of law. and has reached the maturity. Not all the member states who want to be the members of the Venice Commission can get this privileged status. Kazakhstan's engagement in Venice Commission as a full member, and some people ask why we need the full membership, because it provides the full access to foreign advanced technologies in developing of the legislation. It creates the channel about the ongoing issues of other states that are being reviewed normally, and a huge opportunity is given for the scholars, in particular by studying legal systems, legal theories of other states, and if required, the adoption of such. It also provides the possibility to ask for the Venice Commission for their opinion by doing so, eliminating possible errors. The status of Venice Commission allows to strengthen the contacts with European institutions to further develop the democratical reforms in the country. With such priorities that is given to our constitution and our rule of law. Over these years, between the Venice Commission and Kazakhstan, a fruitful cooperation was established. The Commission cooperates with the Constitutional Court, Supreme Court, Supreme Court. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to cooperate with Supreme Council, but now with Supreme Court. I always explain to the foreigners that our parliament was called like this, like a Supreme Court, a Central Election Commission. It also cooperates with the Institute of the Office of the UN Resident Coordinator, as well as with other law enforcement agency. So, like I mentioned, Kazakhstan has assisted in establishment of reforms. I just mentioned some of them. For example, in 2017, the law on amendments in addition to the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan was adopted. One of the recommendations of the Venice Convention is to mention about the office of the UN Resident Coordinator and to adopt the law. In 2017, the special amendment was made. In 2011, the Venice Commission, together with the OSCE Office for Democratic Institution and Human Rights, issued an opinion on the constitutional law on judicial system and status of judges of the Republic of Kazakhstan. While developing the judicial reforms, started the journey that was adjusted by the Venice Commission, whose fruits we can enjoy now. In 2016, at the request of the Supreme Court, asked the Venice Commission to provide an opinion on the draft code of judicial ethics. It's not like I'm having the nostalgia of the Supreme Council, but I make this slip of tongue because we are talking about the Supreme Council under the President. Like the President mentioned in his address that there is a need to change the procedure of appointment of the members of the Supreme Council. The particularly fruitful for us was the cooperation back in 2017. During this year, two opinions of the Commission were drafted on the draft law on amendments and additions to the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan. This amendment has just been mentioned today by the previous speakers. It was a serious opinion for us, and for us it was really important to have the acknowledgement of the political trends in the development of Kazakhstan that the Venice Commission expressed. And on the draft of law on administrative procedures. And then, in 2018, the Commission's conclusion on the draft of the Administrative Procedural Code of the Republic was adopted. This was requested by the Minister of Justice of Kazakhstan. And today we enjoy the new administrative justice. This new administrative and procedural code is under the special focus of many legal experts of not only our country, but also the representatives of the Council of Europe. And I have another idea, like, let's have a look inter alia. I really like this conference that we are holding today and the idea. So let's take a look at inter alia, our administrative justice authority, whose importance for strengthening and protection of human rights is aimed. In December the same year, 2018, the Commission approved the concept of the draft law on the transformation of the Supreme Judicial Council of the Republic of Kazakhstan, the judicial selection system of judges of Kazakhstan. This issue is still relevant today. And the need to pay a particular attention to has been mentioned by the President Tokayev. Our legal community studies carefully the experience of interacting Kazakh legal experts and Venice Commission legal experts, and in November 2019, a book titled Kazakhstan and the Venice Commission for Democracy Through Law was presented. The ones who wants to read this book can find it on the internet. It is available in the library of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Kazakhstan. In December 2021, the Commission approved an opinion on the draft law on the Commissioner for Human Rights, or the corresponding request to the Senate of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan was sent in September 2021. I'd like to take a note how careful Kazakh legal experts respond to offers, proposals, and ideas of the Venice Commission. After adopting this law, the Venice Commission expressed their views in terms of appointment of the officer for the human rights would be determined by the Constitution. 3 months later, the President Tokayev, in his address, mentioned about the need on amending the institute of the officer of the resident coordinator in human rights and making amendments to the Constitution. We are actively cooperating, and I'm really grateful to the Venice Commission and to the head of this Venice Commission that I was selected last year as a member of the Venice Commission on behalf of Kazakhstan, of the Vice President under the Commission as an ombudsman, but I would like to confess that I had no chance to take an active part there because we have been working in an online mode since then, and I hope that in the future I will be able to participate in the Venice Commission meetings. And another thing I'd like to mention in here is that on the request of the organizational control bodies, the Venice Commission made some short recommendations, in particular the institution of the CHR that considers appropriate legislation of other countries. In 2009, on the matters of legal force of acts, structures of the custom unions between Belarus, Russian Federation, and Kazakhstan. There was a serious discussion point whether the sovereignty of a given country violated or not if a country becomes a member of the customs union. And the legal experts of Venice Commission helped and provided us an insight about legal finding and legal opinion, the ones who are interested in constitutional things and constitutional council resolutions and can check the constituent documents of the customs union that turned into the documents of the Eurasian Economic Union. So when someone says like political forces contribute or impeding the integration of particular countries, I'd like to tell you the following thing. The legal experts, particularly the Venice Commission lawyers, are outside the politics, and they are guided by the legal findings and the legal background, and this insight helped us a lot. Maybe I'm overestimating the help provided by the Constitutional Council, but it helped us a lot to form this integrational institute. Ms. Claire Mallory mentioned about the principles about the rule of law, and she mentioned one of them is the principle of law definition. Oscar Lage, the member of the Constitutional Court, is with us now, and he can confirm how often Constitutional Court, when it rules on a given law, was guided by this principle, the principle of law determination, when the law was adopted, whose norms are not clear enough with respect to the human rights, in particular to the repressive nature of the criminal code, criminal procedures, delict procedures, and considered unconstitutional the norms where this principle of law definition was violated, that allowed in practice to construe this or that norm of a given law depending on the entity that applies the law. On behalf of all the entities and now the Commission on Human Rights, I'd like to express my gratitude. Köp rahmet, or thank you very much, merci beaucoup, to our Venice colleagues. I would be able to talk a lot, but I know that consciousness is not a legal instrument, but it should be there no matter what speech you deliver. That's why I will be only limited with my deepest gratitude and appreciation to Venice Commission for this work. And whatever was mentioned in my article's name, entitled The Cooperation Between Kazakhstan and the Venice Commission was fruitful. These are the key words. Thank you.
For that, Your Excellency Rogov. I really believe that this was a very, very useful interventions we had from you to hear more about the Venice Commission and the relationship with Kazakhstan. And this is exactly the type of partnerships that we are looking for jointly. And they don't always have to be led by the United Nations. And my boss may not agree with me here, but I think the whole point is that we need to have this bilateral, multilateral, multi-stakeholder dialogues. And I think that this is exactly what we have heard here, the basis for that. And then the realization of how much has been done in relation to the Constitution over the years and how this now will be brought forward. So this really gives us food for thought as we move in to looking at the future of the Constitution and of rule of law in Kazakhstan in an international dimension as well. So with that, allow me therefore to turn to our next speaker, who I hope is with us online, Jason Glick, our policy specialist from the United Nations Development Programme, who will be joining us online. I'm very glad to see you here, Mr. Glick, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to joining us. Please, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, distinguished excellencies and participants. It is an honor and a privilege to address this conference on the constitutional and international aspects of the establishment of the rule of law. I would say at the onset that though I am the constitutionalist specialist for UNDP based in New York, my intention here today is to provide general remarks on lessons learned from UNDP's experience providing constitutional assistance around the world. I'm not here to tell you what Kazakhstan's constitution should say or how it should be written. I want to share my experiences over the last 15 years as someone who has advised national partners in the design and implementation of constitutional reform processes in dozens of countries. And that, in brief, is what UNDP seeks to do, to provide technical advice, share comparative practices, and through this help national partners to find their own innovative solutions. With that said, it is truly an honor to be speaking to you today in the context of this constitutional moment in Kazakhstan. Constitutions form the backbone of a nation's efforts to promote effective democratic governance and the rule of law. On governance, constitutions frame the institutional and procedural rules and mechanisms that determine how government is formed, managed, and transitioned, how services are delivered, and how power and resources are shared. Constitutions are also central to the rule of law. As the supreme law of the land, constitutions provide the legal certainty, equal applicability, and accountability that are foundational components of the rule of law. I know I'm not the first to notice this today. And constitutions guarantee the fundamental rights and mandating of courts and commissions to protect those rights, which are vital to promoting a rule of law and human rights culture. And finally, constitutions represent the social compact among citizens who wish to find ways to live peacefully and prosperously together and how they should be governed. I would note that these goals of democratic constitutionalism, good governance, the rule of law, a culture of human rights, and harmonious coexistence are the same goals His Excellency President Tokayev highlighted in his State of the Union address. In my experience, constitution making is one of the most politically challenging exercises a country can undertake. There are so many opportunities where it can be disrupted, and there is no way to guarantee its success. But there are common challenges faced by constitutional reformers, and there are strategies that have been devised and tested around the world that can increase the likelihood of a constitutional reform process achieving its desired goals. 4 principles in particular have gained acceptance as being integral to successful constitutional reform. These principles are fully explained in detail in the publicly available guidance note of the Secretary General of the United Nations on constitutional assistance. The first is inclusion. An inclusive constitutional reform process is one in which people can look at the constitution-making body or bodies and feel that they are represented. This usually requires that the constitution-making body reflect the diversity of the nation, where different groups not only have a seat at the table, but have a meaningful voice, so that each feels secure as a valuable contributor to the new constitutional compact that is being written. UNDP recently advised the government of Armenia in forming its constitutional commission to ensure it contains the broad range of life experiences and technical expertise necessary to fulfill its mandate. The second principle is transparency. A transparent constitution-making process is one that is conducted in an open manner so that people are aware of what is happening at each stage and are confident that their voices are heard. Transparency is a valuable tool for constitution makers to manage public expectations, protect the integrity of the process, and protect officials against unfair or unjustified allegations of behaving in a biased or self-serving manner. Transparency also strengthens officials' accountability to the public. As the media, civil society groups, and the public at large know more about how the process is supposed to unfold, they can monitor and report on deviations or problems that may occur. UNDP has a great deal of experience working with a range of actors on ways to increase transparency in constitutional processes. Often, one of the first things we are asked to do is to help constitution makers devise a communication strategy that will keep the public appropriately informed, while at the same time work with the media on ways to responsibly and constructively contribute to the constitution process itself. The third principle is participation. A participatory process is one that empowers the people to provide their views on the Constitution and ensures that the public views are heard, considered, and to the extent appropriate, incorporated into the constitutional text. Public participation is the key to transforming constitution making from a legal exercise into a national dialogue. President Tokayev has noted that, quote, "The challenges facing Kazakhstan today require constructive partnership between the state and civil society," end quote. Genuine public participation in Kazakhstan's constitutional process can help activate this partnership. It will increase the likelihood that the Constitution reflects the aspirations and needs of the Kazakh people, and by extension, enable the Constitution to enjoy more broad-based buy-in and support. Not all people will agree on all issues. To be sure, there will be deep-seated disagreements about the direction Kazakhstan's constitutional reform should take. That's okay. As President Tokayev observed, quote, "In new Kazakhstan, we must invariably follow the principle of different views, but one nation," end quote. Public participation can also help educate the public on constitutional issues and foster a stronger sense of civic and democratic engagement. And public participation is linked to building trust between different societal groups, building trust between citizens and political elites, strengthening national unity and identity, improving attitudes about democracy, and supporting more cooperative democratic behavior. All of these outcomes, stronger civic engagement, greater trust between citizens and government, and a stronger democracy are goals highlighted by the President in his State of the Nation address. UNDP has assisted countries in designing more participatory constitutional processes by sharing experiences in developing public outreach strategies and civic education materials, and by identifying the most effective modalities for soliciting the preferences of the people. There is no one way to approach this. Everything must be contextualized to a particular country, and different approaches may be required for different groups at different stages of the process. In the Gambia, for example, early in the process, constitution makers asked what issues mattered most to the people in order to set the constitutional agenda. And later in the process, sent out surveys with hundreds of questions to identify the preferred way to deal with those issues. In Chile, UNDP has helped set up a digital portal with international norms and standards, helped organize discussions between leaders and communities, and provided logistical support to allow historically marginalized indigenous groups discuss amongst themselves the greatest needs for constitutional reform. And tomorrow, I have the honor to travel to Armenia to discuss with the recently appointed Constitutional Commission opportunities to promote constitutional dialogue in Armenia, and in particular, ways to reach those who have historically not always been heard. Of course, public participation is not without risks. Experience suggests that where participation is not meaningful, where there is not sufficiently open to all people, or where public inputs are not sufficiently considered, It can lead to discord and enhance mistrust between the public and their elected representatives. And as a core function of constitutions is to protect the minority from the majority, even the most participatory processes cannot and should not be allowed to turn constitution making into a mere public opinion poll where the majority always has its say at the minority's expense. I do not mean to suggest that these outcomes are likely to occur in Kazakhstan, just that we have seen them happen elsewhere. And it is crucial to consider those voices that will require special effort to be heard, perhaps because historically they have been muted or culturally have been encouraged not to speak out, or for whom the sheer logistics of participating is an almost insurmountable task. Those voices must be heard too. In Chile, UNDP is working with official constitution makers and civil society groups to promote women's rights and inclusion and make sure historically marginalized voices are also heard. Constitution making is at its best when political representatives are speaking to their constituents. The constituents are speaking with their representatives. Different groups within society are speaking with each other, and everyone is listening. The final principle is national ownership. Constitution making is a sovereign process that, to be successful, must be nationally owned and led. And national ownership requires engagement of not just national authorities, but a broad range of political actors and societal groups. UNDP sees its role in providing constitutional support to assist the process as a whole and all stakeholders within it, to effectively and meaningfully play their role so that the goals of the constitutional reform process, as identified and articulated by President Tokayev, have the greatest chance of success. President Tokayev has issued a call. Let's build the new Kazakhstan together, he said. This is indeed a project for the Kazakh people. But if UNDP can play even a small role in helping Kazakhstan achieve its vision of a stronger democratic state based on the respect for human rights and the rule of law, and grounded in the principles of inclusion, participation, transparency, and national ownership, we are honored to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Jason. I really have to say that I thought it was a very thought-provoking and concrete deliberation that really outlined the 4 key principles of inclusion, transparency, participation, and national ownership. And I believe there's a lot of food for thought for us to bring forward here. So thank you very much for those words. I look forward to engaging further with UNDP and other colleagues in the system as we move forward as we can. So with that, dear colleagues, we have come to the first part of this afternoon's conference, and I invite you all for a short but well-deserved coffee outside, and I encourage you to bring that with you into this beautiful room. And then we will continue. But I would say that we would possibly not take as long break as you're thinking, but possibly we're going to take 5 to 10 minutes to refresh, or 5 minutes to refresh ourselves, and then we're going to come back. We're slightly behind, but I really believe that it has been worth it for all of us, because this is how we move forward together. Thank you so much. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Еще раз добрый день всем.
Hello again.
You are still with us because we understand that it's late Friday afternoon. People are busy, but still the show must go on. And as you could see, and as you have noticed, I hope already, here we are maintaining the gender equality, almost. So, first of all, again, I would like to greet His Excellency Igor Ivanovich Rogov, Her Excellency Mikhailov Friberg-Story, then of course distinguished colleague Mr. Askhar Dalbayev, and our colleague Ms. Andrew Sabitova sitting here, greeting you. Thank you all those who are here with us in the hall, and specifically those who are joining us online. It's a great pleasure and honor, and without any due delay, I would really be pleased, and it's my pleasure and honor equally to invite our first afternoon speaker and honorable guest, Her Excellency Ms. Slavica Banic, expert of the Venice Commission, OSCE or ODHIR, expert, former Judge Constitutional Court of Croatia, former substitute member of the Venice Commission on behalf of Croatia. Madam, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues and participants, allow me first to thank the organizers and Venice Commission for having invited me to participate in this important and challenging event. Venice Commission brought me to Kazakhstan to meet so many wonderful people truly devoted to the rule of law. And I use this opportunity to congratulate you on the anniversary. And the only thing I'm sorry is that we cannot toast for this opportunity as I did many times when I was in Kazakhstan. So my contribution to this conference today will refer to the opinion of the Venice Commission from 2018 on the draft administrative procedural and process-related code of the Republic of Kazakhstan, review of which was driven by the rule of law principle, as it was said in the introduction of the opinion. As I have checked on the internet, on Adilem, I think if I have pronounced it well, the Ministries of Justice site, there are differences in the code and the draft code, which means that Kazakh authorities accepted the then provided recommendations, for which I'm very happy. Nevertheless, for the sake of the topic, it will be useful actually to point out good and couple of fragile points in relation of rule of law that were observed then, offering you thus a view actually how this piece of legislation that was carefully and cautiously prepared for its legal life within the legal order of Kazakhstan for quite a period of time, in drafting period complied the rule of law, or it reflected its essential elements. So as Madam President of the Venice Commission said in the beginning in her introductory remarks, when reviewing the draft legislation or existing legislation, Venice Commission relies on its concept of the rule of law that it is developed back in 2011 in its report on the rule of law, but of course not exclusively. Because this concept is a good base for review of the rule of law, because Venice Commission actually afterwards developed a checklist, which I would say gives the notion of rule of law with a functional dimension, which is necessary for taking out this notion of the rule of law of theoretical framework. The concept of Venice Commission then tried to reconcile the notion of British rule of law, German Rechtsstaat, and French État de droit, not only in the formal, but also in substantive or material aspects. Also, Venice Commission then relied on the definition of Tom Bingham, on the definition that gave Tom Bingham on the rule of law, that all persons and authorities within the state, whether public or private, and I emphasize this public, should be bound by and entitled to benefit of laws publicly made, taking effect in the future and publicly administered in the courts. So as you have heard from the Madam President, the necessary elements of the rule of law, I will just repeat them quickly, are legality, legal certainty, prohibition of arbitrariness, access to justice before the independent and impartial court, respect for the human rights, and non-discrimination and equality before the law. So these elements very well reflect also the Council of Europe's approach to the rule of law, which always actually emphasized that the quality of laws and the control of the executive discretion in implementing laws in order to prevent arbitrariness are crucial elements of the rule of law. But before I elaborate these aspects, there should be made two important remarks. Namely, it is not possible to speak about the administrative, procedural, and process-related code in relation to the rule of law without observation of whether the rule of law as such is enshrined in the Constitution of Kazakhstan. In spite of the fact that Kazakh's constitution does not explicitly use the notion rule of law as some countries do. For example, my country has the explicit notion of the rule of law in the constitution. This principle is embedded in it, firstly through the Article 1, which defines the Republic of Kazakhstan as democratic, as social, as legal, secular state, with whose highest values are person, rights, freedoms, and life. So further on, through other provisions, this rule of law principle is envisaged, such as the principle of division of powers, principle of legality, principle of equality before the law, etc. Of course, it is said in other wording than I mention it here. Secondly, if we acknowledge that in Germany, the administrative law was a primary task in strengthening the rule of law, Rechtsstaat, back in 20th century, and that in the United Kingdom, administrative law occupied the central point within the rule of law doctrine, and that is considered that rule of law is enforced through administrative law, then I will not make the mistake if I say that the presidential decree on the concept of legal policy of the Republic of Kazakhstan from 2010 to 2020 was a document of utmost importance for the development of the rule of law as well, because as it gave a strong impetus for the development of administrative branch, law as a branch, as it is said in concept, I quote, "The rights of citizens and organizations guaranteed by the state shall be implemented with the aid of administrative law insofar as ensuring and protection of these rights is public interest of the state." So end of quote. Speaking in general terms of quality of law, with the emphasis on legal certainty as indispensable element of the rule of law, the opinion of Venice Commission observed that the draft code, administrative code, I will use the short name, was of good quality as it integrated a wide range of legal provisions, filling a number of existing gaps in national legislation and introducing new mechanisms and procedures on the basis of positive international examples. For Venice Commission, such an approach could give an important impulse to the further reforms in the administrative field, which for sure speaks in favor of the strengthening of the rule of law. The requirement of legal certainty is especially respected in prescribing the principles which are characteristics for administrative procedure and proceedings, such as the principle of legality, which is the key principle of administrative law, principle of proportionality, principle of justice, reliability, etc. All of these principles, together with the principles for protection of human rights, which is also expressed in the code, by the opinion of Venice Commission, reaffirms the protection of human rights and freedoms as another part of the rule of law principle. The quality of law, as Madam President talked about, implies that Venice Commission calls what Venice Commission calls transparent, democratic, and accountable process of enacting laws. It is quite known that drafting of administrative code took a long time And furthermore, its enactment was delayed in order to prepare public administration and judiciary to the new circumstances. Also, the Venice Commission got the information that the draft code was publicly consulted before the legislative procedure. In reference of administration of justice, a huge work has been done to choose the right model of administrative justice, which indeed shows commitment of Kazakhstan to shape its legal order structurally and by plan. So on the margins of the said, I would like to mention that European countries today require the public consultations and inclusion of relevant stakeholders in drafting procedure, whereas the violation of the democratic procedure, of the transparency, of accountability is seen as the violation of the rule of law. For example, the Czech Constitutional Court in 2011 abolished the law on economic measures because the parliamentary opposition was deprived of their constitutional rights conferred to them as to parliamentary minority in the legislative procedure. Another point for my country, Croatian Constitutional Court quashed health education program because parental councils at schools were denied the right to give their opinion of this program and because no public consultations were provided. As a very important element of the Venice Commission's concept of the rule of law is the access to court before independent and impartial courts, including judicial review of administrative acts. In this context, it should be said that the introduction of the administrative justice in Kazakhstan, with commitment that it becomes a full-fledged form of administration of justice, along with criminal and civil litigation, as it stems from the concept and further on is developed in a legislative manner, has been greeted by the Venice Commission as a large step forward in the organization of the state upon the rule of law principle. Judicial review comes as a natural consequence of introduction of administrative justice, and since the administrative courts are established, the principles of independence of judiciary should apply to them. However, in the opinion of Venice Commission, there were two very important parts which raised concerns to the rule of law. First one was a part which dealt with equality before the law, and the second one related to the administrative discretion. Equality before the law is an indispensable feature of the rule of law because, as Madam President said in the introductory remarks, it means that each individual is subject to the same laws with no individual grouping having special privileges. In that regard, Venice Commission noted then, and I can see still it is in the code present, that in spite of the provision which secures the equal rights of the both parties in the proceedings, the code laid down the active role of the court in the proceedings, which implies active actions of the court in collection of evidence, regardless of the procedural activities of the parties. Venice Commission was of the view that such types of proceedings acquire some features of investigation when the search for the objective truth prevails over the implementation of the principle of equality of the parties in the process. In the relation to the second part, the prohibition of arbitrariness as the element of the rule of law principle refers to the executive discretionary powers. The main background factor to the rise of administrative law was the expansion of administrative discretion, which has accompanied the rise of the welfare state and the growing involvement of government in economic and social regulation. In that regard, the safeguards against arbitrary governmental powers have increasingly been sought in specific administrative law tools and are found in the judicial review against the Administrative Act. Venice Commission is of the opinion that executive discretionary powers are necessary to perform a range of governmental tasks, but they should not be exercised in the way that is arbitrary. So such exercise of power permits substantively unfair, unreasonable, irrational, or oppressive decisions which are inconsistent with the notion of the rule of law. Consequently, Venice Commission paid special attention in the code to the notion of administrative discretion, which was then widely used throughout the draft code with a rather peculiar legal meaning. So having in mind complexity of the Institute of Executive Administrative Discretion, which in German and French theory of law is particularly observed, as well as requirement of the uniform application of law, Venice Commission asked for clarifications, which seems to have been adopted, as I could check this in the code on the internet. So to conclude, in spite of some concerns that were expressed by Venice Commission in the opinion from 2018, it might be said that administrative code stood on the path of what Tom Bingham said for the rule of law. However, it is on Kazakh's administration and judiciary to keep this path in the right direction. And I will reiterate here the words of Madam President, which was said actually for the constitutional amendments, Venice opinion regarding the constitutional amendments, that many aspects of these efforts can be only assessed over time. And when, of course, practical experience has revealed the most appropriate approach. But in regard the administrative, procedural, and process-related law, it will be needed also to take some measures beside the pure implementation. And it will be necessary to devote the attention to legal education, judicial trainings, roundtables, and exchange of views within judiciary and administration to implement the code in uniform manner and to work on the strengthening of the rule of law, which the code itself foresees as the objective of the administrative procedure. In that regard, I wish you all the luck in further development and strengthening the rule of law. And once again, happy anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Banic. We very much appreciate your actually kind sharing of your views, remarks, reflections, your expert opinion. We do regret that you could not be here with us today, but we do very much appreciate that you found time to join us online. Hopefully next time we shall have the opportunity to meet each other in person.
I truly hope.
Thank you. Voila. And now I would like to ask my distinguished colleague, Ms. Ainur Sabitova, to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Merci. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, it's a very great honor for me to be a coordinator, a coordinator of this really high-level conference, and I certainly thanks to my colleague, Monsieur Samek, and to my colleague as a coordinator, Monsieur Nurmukhanov. And I'm very, very pleased to name the next speaker, who is a member of Constitutional Council of the Republic of Kazakhstan, substitute member of the Venice Commission on behalf of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Madame Unzila Shapak.
Рахмет. Бүгінгі конференцияда мен
So I will make my presentation in Kazakh. I'd like to congratulate you all with this anniversary and wish you success in all your initiatives and undertakings. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in the modern world, it's clear that any country based on democracy should keep fundamental rights and follow the rule of law. The international political documents often quote rule of law. Today, the rule of law is one of the most well-observed notions, not only in the area of law. The rights of law should be provided by the rule of law, so that there would be no reasons for assaulting this exploitation. Protecting main laws as of 1950, the rule of law concept was adopted in the national legal system of many countries of the world. The Kazakh system of rule of law is from the old ancient time. The steppe democracy was related to that in the very beginning, and the rights of the nomadic people, the expense of their souls, the freedom of movement, the responsibility of the law issued by the Khan, by the Toria, the judge, and the decisions of bees, of the judges, is explained by the system of that period. The rule of law was conferred by the spirit of the steppe people. In 2014, the General Secretary of UN, in his report, mentioned that the rule of law is where all the participants are responsible. So it's a public way of reviewing the independence of courts as to the human rights. This is the equal rights, the legal ownership, the branching of government, legal transparency, lack of rush, providing for legal transparency. So that was the conclusion. Of course, this does not fully close her phenomenon, but finally it turned out to be differential. To provide for the legal nation, we need to be aware of the legal pledge. Who do they represent? So the rule of law could be done at different levels. So the less is that rule of law, the more there is a chance. So where the governments are stabilized, the rule of law is not keep up to date. When it's not fully protected, this is just empty words. So if we talk about the rule of law historically, it emerged as the end of which would provide for the... It's a very important issue right now. So that is why our President Tokayev has underlined that we need to understand that the supremacy of law and public protection is the common task for every one of us. The factor, it's related to the general law culture, the relationship of the general, whether this rule of law is real for the people. 2001 to 2016, during a plenary meeting, there was the list of control issues, and 6 criteria were given. So there is an access to legality, to justice. That was already mentioned by our other speakers, that one of the criteria is the constitutional effort. The constitutional control using the special constitutional law or court. So can the individuals claim for to this constitutional law, constitutional claim through the general? Yes, of course, they can apply when they are affected. So could the individuals approach so can the parliament and the government provide for the continuity of the constitutional court, or the bodies while the new parameters are being adopted. So does this providing for the gaps in the legislation? Thus, the general court decisions are being cancelled, but unless we can we accommodate the opinions of those constituency? So, should we use preliminary control of constitutional organ? So we're going to review these issues. This is the objective of creating the new Kazakhstan by being governed by this criteria. The constitutional country organ is to be built and delivered. So there will be constitutional control element, also by purchasing. So that means how we can support the rule of law. If the Constitutional Court would then that would strengthen the rule of law and the rule of constitution. Dear participants of the conference, today all the questions out of what we have discussed at the conference, we discussed keeping the rights of the human. So that is regulated at the national. For ordinary person, work and the actions of the law enforcement, it should be clearly governed in the law. So now there is a demand for that from our society. All legitimate actions, they should be deemed as people. Here we need to secure the confidence, provide for the confidence of the people. That would aid the principles that needs to be reviewed and tackled. So the Constitutional Court provides for the quality of the law, where we implement the rules and regulations and decrees. In addition to that, the strengthening constitutional control. The people could not approach constitutional law in the earlier. The Ganesh Institute, Denmark Institute on has conducted a rule of law workshop, the guidance for policymakers, as the requirements of the rule of law guidance, which has the national and regional approach. So I believe that all of that are additional tools which are going to help the rule of law initiative. The same conferences should happen at the international level, where they work on behalf of the international market. So here we need to have such instructions. So the activity of the Supreme, the Constitutional Law, or Constitutional Council, to provide for the common goals and performing historical value, increasing the protection of person, including fit and functionality for the state bodies. So it's better to provide for the court decisions which would be implemented so that we can approach these international tribunes. In Kazakhstan, our citizens cannot apply to the Constitutional Council. They can't check existing law. So in the legal relations, it's important to teach citizens to use their rights. So knowing this as the chief document, that should be the nucleus of legal. This should be the support for the public opinion, because this is the rule of law is based on the supremacy of the Constitution. So developing constitutionalism, supporting the system which is based on the law. Thank you so much for your attention.
Господин
Mr. Samek, distinguished person. Two speakers unfortunately cannot join us, and one of our speakers has a meeting. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Sabitova, and Kuprahmet goes to Madame Unzila Shapak for her very interesting, actually, sort of and comprehensive reflection of the importance of the rule of law and specifically related to the constitutional law. So once again, Ulkan Rahmet, Madam. Now, since I think the list of speakers has reached its end, may I formally invite His Excellency Mr. Igor Ivanovich Rogov to share with us concluding remarks, suggestions related to this indeed a very unique conference. So, Your Excellency, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, господин Самик.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samek. Traditionally, we always spend too much time. We do not follow the schedule. We haven't optimized it. So unfortunately, we could not hear two speakers, Mr. Cesare Pinelli, Deputy Member of Venetian Commission from Italy, and Mr. Murat Bashimov, who is at the meeting with the administration of President. But we also planned some discussion and conclusions to be drawn. But discussion, since I represent the body to protect human rights, which is the freedom of expression, although we are behind the schedule, I cannot help but invite the participants of the conference to have a question to me or to speak shortly. So if you have any questions, we can see that. If you are on the Zoom platform, you can raise your hand. So please identify yourself, and if anything wants to pose a question or to provide a comment. So we cannot see that on the screen. That means that we cannot see that online. It means that we either had a successful conference and we've resolved all the issues, or let's not talk about that. Let's hope that everything was quite successful, that everything that we wanted to hear we have heard. So if there will be any questions in the future, we can think of the discussions and debates. We can review this, as it was mentioned by me and other speakers. Now I'd like to say several words at the end. You know, colleagues, when we have planned we were at one conference of Sorbonne Kazakhstan Institute, and when the idea of hosting a Jubilee conference, we could not imagine how it would be very topical. We thought that that would be the reason to come back together to recall who were the founders of our independence and to discuss some theoretical questions. But then the presidential address came, where it is tasking to reform our political system, and today we see how much the history and modernity are interdependent. So knowing the history of this or other problem, it's easier to make a decision, especially in the right. And today, when we have heard our speakers, I'd like to thank our international speakers first. Talking about the principles of United Nations organizations, the work of Venice Commission, the notion of rule of law itself, so the principles that lie in the heart of this rule of law. So all of us, especially the ones that is working on the projects on the constitutional law, the amendments to constitutional laws, to current legislation, for them, this story of many issues, the story of that would have both scientific and practical influence. So that is the name of our conference. It's both scientific and technical. So the link between the earth and so I believe that she needs to think about it more and develop it on her own. Thanks to academician Kuzimanov, we studied the history of our justice, of our bees.
Права. И вот в этом плане, я думаю, есть вопросы, которые можно было бы отдельно изучить, обсудить. И это представит не только теоретический или историко-правовой интерес, но и сугубо практический. Тем более, что мы, видимо, находимся
Moreover, we are located just in the beginning of the upgrading of our state, of our legal and social structures. I remember that at one Venice Commission meeting, the chairperson of the Constitutional Court of France spoke, Mr. Debré, and he was talking about the novelties that were brought to the constitutional reforms in France under the support of Mr. Sarkozy, as well as some other novels to the legislation. And he mentioned one thing that I couldn't help but remembering, but he told that the path to the democracy is not an easy way, it's not an easy journey, and we are just at the beginning of this journey. And then I had to talk about our problems and speak, but when I was talking about my problems, and if France just on the onset of this journey, but we are doing the first steps as compared to France, and it's a good thing that we are doing these steps. I wouldn't say the traditional quotations or saying that the road starts with the first step, but this work has just been started, and I believe that such kind of events are of a significant importance, both for the scholars, both for the academia, practitioners, and if you want, for future historians that would further study the history of our Kazakh state. That's why on my behalf, I'd like to thank all speakers, all those who spoke, all those who attended our platform, both online and offline, who watched us on YouTube channel. I'd like to thank the organizers of this event. I've already mentioned that the Constitutional Court, the Human Rights Commission, the Nazarbayev Foundation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that plays a particular role that was given a strong impetus to our discussion. The structures of the UN organizations, and Ms. Thank you for the organizing of this conference and Venice Convention, and it's said clearly, if we celebrate the anniversary of our staying there, I'd like to thank Mikola Friedberg's story for that. We expected a certain support from Venice Convention, and we received this support in a full-fledged, in a full scope. The president of that commission was there. She spoke with a very interesting and meaningful keynote address. I'd like also to thank the European structures. Of course, Mr. Ambassador of the European Union in Kazakhstan, Mr. Kioskos, as well as the French side. I would like to tell you that it's a huge merit from your side. And when we talk about the French people in Kazakhstan, we extrapolate all the ideas to Madame, because we are speaking French here, to Madame Sabitova, to your institute. And I'd like to pass the 4 words of gratitude to the university for such a huge job and such a great endeavors that are delivered from your side in terms of volunteering. It's a separate talk, I think, and we will be able to talk about the legal frameworks of volunteers, because every time I come there, new questions come to our mind. I'd like to thank all your team for such support, and to the hosts of this platform, of this event, of the initiators of this idea was given by Mr. Vaslin. So let's express our particular gratitude to Mr. Vaslin, because look at this beautiful building, look at this amazing organization and arrangements. You know, you have made one small mistake. You have done everything so smooth that we would always love to come to you and ask this platform or this place facilities for any kind of significant events or activities, and I hope that we didn't bother you that much and didn't cause you inconveniences, so we can expect to use your facilities in future. And I would also like to thank those who provided us the technical support of this event. Every cloud has a silver lining, as the saying goes, and this proverb expresses what is taking place now. Unless there is a pandemic, we wouldn't know how to use this hybrid, or how they called this online-offline format, when we can attend both online and offline. You know, we have our own set of glossary is appeared after the pandemic, and a huge number of those who are attending us in online, both on YouTube and in Zoom. We'll be able to come back to that and see the broadcast in future. Of course, it requires special facilities, it requires special equipment and technical staff. We would like to thank the hosts and organizers of this event for granting us this equipment, especially those who appeared from Institute of Sorbonne in Kazakhstan. And of course, nothing would be possible unless I would dare to say this way, to a certain extent, to beautiful translation, amazing translation, because trial languages in the forum and in our country, like our president mentioned, was here at the highest level. The translation in 3 languages that were claimed as the official ones, we managed to receive the information in very high quality, and I'd like to thank you for that. You know, I had a feeling like I missed to mention someone. I forgot to mention someone. I missed someone. Okay, yes. I would also like to thank you, of course, for your moderation and for your kind words. Thank you very much for that. You know, it's not a paid job. I'm volunteering today, but because I call myself as a person who deals with the human rights, so unless there is a support from such highly qualified specialists, nothing would happen, because all of us have the same big wish to contribute for further development of our country. So as to, you know, someone mentioned from the previous speakers and noted in the speech, like the speakers who know well our legislation, the norms, the goals, the tasks that are set forth in our constitution when we position ourselves as a democratic, lawful, secular state whose values are human's rights and freedoms. All these values can be seen today owing to this historic momentum and historic background and flashback, when these values are filled with the real-life content. Today, our contribution was a tiny one in realizing the problems and issues that we have accumulated over these years. And it wouldn't be like we leave this audience and then nothing would disappear. But if you have any new thoughts, any new insights or ideas, I believe that we made it a day. Okay, so I'd like to thank everyone. And one photo.
Спасибо.
Спасибо большое.
Good luck. Удачи.
Уважаемые участники.
Okay, dear participants, please stay for a while for a family photo. Danyar, please stay with us.